Well, hello, this is Bob Buckley, and this is going to be the first in a series of video tutorials on KCD and then ultimately the True 32 cabinet library for KCD. All of the examples I'm going to use tonight are going to be from the True 32 library, but we're specifically going to be addressing the new features of version 9 of KCD. Version 10 is due out in June or in toward the end of July of 2011. So we're getting pretty close to that now, but we're going to go over version 9, the items that have been added or changed in version 9. So to start with, one of the first things that was very helpful was within the three-dimensional view, we now have a what is called an express view. An express view just allows us to move around the room and still see the image that we're dealing with. So using my secondary mouse button, I'm able to somewhat pan and move around the room, and we see the kitchen image. Not all the details are there while we're moving around, but the majority of them are, and you can get a good feel for where you're at. And then using my primary mouse button, I'm moving the camera position of where I'm aimed into this room. Once I release this, then it's going to paint or detail out this drawing, very refined version. You see it counting down here, and you get a better, more refined version of the drawing when it's done. But you can, prior to that, move around this drawing and see where you're moving to and where you're panning to. Much better than the older versions where you could move but you couldn't see the image. You had to wait for it to draw in the higher resolution version before you could see what the result of your move was, and then you'd have to redo the room again. But you also see that once it does that, we see a little more refined drawing, and this is not set to a real high level drawing right now, but it is an adequate drawing. But we see some lighting and shading and a little finer graining and all of that. So that's the first new feature that they added. Another very useful feature that was added is the change color groups. And we've always had the color options up here where we could set colors and then set color groups. So before we started drawing a job, we could come here to the color group and say we want to be drawing in this group or this group or this group. We also could go into those groupings and make a change for that particular. If we wanted the cabinets to not be brown and be beige, we could do that here. But that was changing that color group within the job, not choosing between the existing color groups that we already had. So the new option is under change standards in this room, and under mirror and change, you now just need to get into the group here that you are coming from, and then you can say you want to be in some other group, and I want to pick one that's different enough that we can tell, and then you choose the change button, and we see now we have what appears to be a painted cabinet with a green countertop instead of a wood grain cabinet as we had before. So that's a fairly useful feature, and also would allow you to have different color cabinets in different parts of the room. We've also got several new libraries in addition to here. We're again looking at the True 32 library, but version 9 includes a new Osborne library, new Adams Wood Products library, and the most recent is White River. So these are all like turnings and legs, and so if you come into these groups, you can actually see an image of the item you're going to be putting into the job, and it will use the appropriate colors, and it will three-dimensionally render as the true item is. So instead of having to make some sort of compromise using the turnings here, where it's not truly, we have two turnings groups, but we might use this 11 to be similar to some leg within a notation saying, but what we're actually going to use is maybe this particular Osborne leg, or this particular White River leg, or this particular Adams Wood Products leg. Now we can actually use the appropriate leg that would have the appropriate shape. Also, we can import DXF items as long as they're mesh files. So if you have an appliance or some sort of item you want to import into KCD, you can do that now as long as it's in the mesh format. And my understanding, as we move forward, we'll be able to bring in different 3D types. There won't have to be mesh files in the future, but currently they do, so that's the new option to be able to do that. Also have a new feature on the notes. When we come in, this is one of the flagship features in my opinion. When we come here to the note field and we drop a note, we have the ability here now to type out this note and save it, or to recall an existing note. And so now I've only got one in this little test version, but here we see I've got a note called Rebishelf 15-inch pull-out trash. So when I choose that, my note is there. So that's a really useful feature for items that you make notations about frequently. And then you can place the note somewhere in the job. Now for this video, I'm having to keep my screen size fairly limited, so that note is so small you can't really see it. But if we had a note like that, we could save it and reuse it over and over and over again and not have to retype it each and every time. So that's a really useful feature. We also now in the print options have a preview feature, which is a really nice option. In the past, a lot of us were using a program called Fine Print to do the same thing, but if we came in here and said we wanted to look at this floor plan, we can now say preview and see what's going to print here in this preview screen. Let me drag that up to fit in within our box here so we can see it. But we get a true preview of what that item is going to look like within the once we do print it. So that's a very useful feature added to the print option box. There's a lot of new wood grains and granite textures. I'm not going to go over all of those, but obviously that's helpful for those that show three-dimensional drawings. So having that would be beneficial to them. We also have a new option here. Let me zoom in here so you can see it. But the option is now we have shaped countertop edges. So if we come in here to countertop edges and we say, I think this triple round is the easiest one to see it. So we have a square edge top right here right now. And if we say change all the countertops in this room, and you can draw your own shapes just like you can draw your own molding. So now you see we have that triple edge countertop everywhere in this room. So that's a nice new option, especially if you offer countertops. Also, in the three-dimensional view, once you're here in the 3D and you've got a view that you're satisfied with, that you're ready to print, one of the problems we've had in the past is that three-dimensional view had to be in color. You didn't have a black and white choice for that, and now you do when you come to your print option and you choose your 3D presentation. If you choose black and white, you actually get a grayscale version of that drawing, and that's very helpful for your clients if they don't want to burn up all the ink in their printer. And you can include both if you need to. Do a black and white version and a color version, so they have one to look at on screen in color and then one they can print and not waste all the ink in their printer. Another useful option is the custom dimensions, and I've placed several here just to show you how they work, or show you how I would use them. Basically, this was a remodel I did from a flood. There was no island in the previous kitchen. It was just this L-shaped kitchen, and they asked for an island, and in so doing we kind of determined what we thought the minimum walkways should be, and I'm able to identify them here for them, that these, this walkway between this pantry wall and the island is going to be 914, and this little wing, this is actually stairs going down into the den, and a little wing wall there, and that dimension is 990. And then using the dimensions from their actual refrigerator, we're able to identify all of these walk spaces and openings of where they're all located for them. And that is just using this new custom line dimension. You just take that out and drag it, and then you get a dialog box. And so if I wanted a 3200 millimeter length, I can type that in, or I can drag it to the right length. And then I can say, you know, if I didn't get it exactly horizontal, I can click on horizontal, or if I wanted to go vertical, I could have gone vertical. And then say OK to place that item. But also, while you're here, you can say, hey, I want to attach that to this wall number 1, or I want to attach that to this unit number 35, so that that dimension goes with that unit. And one that would make sense to do that on is this sink center I've placed here. I've placed a custom dimension line identifying the center from this corner of the sink. So I would want to attach that to wall 1. So if I moved wall 1, that custom dimension would go with it. But if I place that, you see we now have a dimension line of 3200 with the arrow. So that's a really, really useful item there. And then also, because it's actually instead of just a typed note, when we come in here to our scale and change to inches, we see that they all convert to inches. So again, that's a really nice feature there. Another really useful feature, in my opinion, is we can see now. I'm going to go back to that other color so we can see this a little better. Change standards in this room. Again, we need this over here to represent the color that we're at now, to say we want to change to another color. So I'm going to kind of reverse what I did earlier. Go back to this brown so that you can see that crown mold there. But if we go in here to, and let me zoom in there so you can get a better view of that. But if we choose our option here under View, Show Molding, we can turn the moldings off now. And that's very helpful in being able to see, especially on these jobs where the molding is going to the ceiling, of, you know, how much am I overlaying my frieze? Is it enough that I can actually have something to nail to? Or that you just don't want to see the moldings temporarily. You can do that. In this same option, we can turn the countertops on and off. And I use that a lot. I really like the ability to turn countertops on and off. Just so we can get a better view of that, I'm going to turn the dimension levels off. And I'm also going to turn off the unit numbers. So when we turn these countertops on and off, you can really, with those settings, we can see very easily how well that helps to see the construction beneath. Also have a useful feature, in my opinion, that we can now choose a black and white drawing. If you've drawn a job in KCD and you've decided that you want to bring the client into your office or into your showroom and show them the drawings, and you realize, well, you know, I drew brown cabinets and they have a white painted kitchen, or vice versa. You know, you've just got the wrong color group and you don't want to spend a lot of time with that. Just to avoid any questions about it, you can just go to a black and white drawing of that room and avoid those questions. And the black-white line drawing is a little easier to look at on occasion. Also have a new item in version 9 that will be expanded on as time goes on. In the tall cabinet group, there's now tall applied left and right 3-panel. And that these parts do actually cut list, and you have control. In the old applied ends, basically all you had was control over the the depth and the height and the thickness, but not really anything about the cut list. You could specify style and rail sizes, but if it was multi-panel, you didn't have this ability here where you can actually distinguish the size of these panels and say, you know, I want the bottom one to be 878 and the top one to be 1024, you know, something like that, where you actually can control the configuration of those 3 panels. So that's new to this version. Also have a lot of new sink options on the sink cabinets themselves. Actually, I got that is not one of the new sinks. This is an older job, so I'm going to erase that. Oh, that's not a sink cabinet. I'm sorry. That was a regular cabinet with a sink placed in it because it was extended in initially. But let me actually, what I'll do just to show you the sink cabinet is just go grab a sink cabinet and place it over here to the left. So we'll take just our regular sink cabinet. You see all the options down here. There's quite a few of them. And I'm just going to place that about 100 or about 250 millimeters off that left wall so we have something to look at here. You see that's just your typical sink there, and then we can choose this undermount, which will get rid of the perimeter around that sink. So that's an undermount, and we can have a single bowl that is flush mount, and a double offset bowl where we have a small and large. So you have quite a few options here. You see I'll scroll through them. I'm not going to go through all of them, but you've got quite a few options there on sink types. And same thing is true in the bathrooms. There's quite a few new sink options in there as well. Also, you have the ability now to take an item, something that you've created, and let me open a different job here. And I'm going to go to a job that has a particular hood in it that I want to show you. And show you a new feature that's where you can add your own items. And I want to turn a bunch of this stuff off just so we can see better. But on this wall we've got what represents a fairly good representation of, and these are all components within KCD to draw this. This is a valance, that's a filler, that's a wainscot panel, this is a wainscot panel, this is a wainscot panel, this is a cabinet, this is a cabinet, and that's a corbel, and that's a corbel. And so I've done a pretty good job of representing a hood, a custom hood that I could buy from Stanisi, and that happens to be this S-Series hood. What I'm able to do now, and let me turn the unit numbers back on so you can see this new right button functionality allows me to click on a number of items, as I'm doing here. And so I'm basically saying that I want to do something to all of these items at once. And then I can come over here and right click in this group and save as a custom unit. And I've already done it, so I'm not going to do it again. And this is that unit, and you see we have a graphic of that unit that we can use, and we can place that unit. And we can actually resize it to some extent. When it's this many components, it may not resize perfectly, so it would make more sense in this case. This is a 6-foot hood, to actually, instead of just naming that W-Series wood hood, to name it a W-Series 72-inch hood, and then have another one that's all the different variations like we've done here, 30, 36, 42, 48. And that way you've got, you're not having to make changes that could possibly skew something about it. With that many different components, it probably wouldn't know what to make static and what to move, because these units would be static. But you can create a custom assembly like that, save it to your cabinet group, and then the next time you need it, just drag it out. So now if I leave here and start a new job and draw a wall, I can go to that wood hood group and grab that hood, and I'm just going to center it on the wall. And now we see we have all those components in the right color group. Even though it was saved as a painted color group, it's actually in the right color group. And we can turn those numbers off if we want to so we can see all the components. But that was a unit that was added to as a custom unit to the group, and you can do that with any item you want to. There's other right button functionality to this, and I'm going to go back to the job we were in to show you that. And this cabinet right here, I have changed. You see that we're set on dimension level 2. So you look at these cabinets, and you're not seeing a lot of dimensions about them. You're seeing a width and a height for each one of those cabinets, but that's about it. And if we turn these drawings to level 4, that's really too many dimensions. But for your assemblers, the people that actually have to build the cabinet, this particular cabinet really needs to give them a little more information for assembly. This, having a width and a height of this cabinet is really all that's needed to assemble that cabinet, to make that cabinet. But this one, you need to know this opening height and opening width, and you need to know the size of this rail, and you need to know the size of this top rail, and you need to know the size of this opening below. And you see if we turn the doors off on this cabinet, we can actually see that it is identifying this opening height from the top of the bottom to the bottom of this rail. When we turn the doors back on, you'll notice that the door is actually going above that. So we actually have within this cabinet the ability to control this gap or reveal here, but we're able to really illustrate for our builder with this right button functionality of being able to, right click on a cabinet and then come over and click here and choose one of these dimension levels or any of these other items that are available. But we could change, on that cabinet now, say we want that to be dimension level 3. It gives us a little more information without cluttering the whole drawing up. So that's a pretty useful feature in my opinion. Also, we have a new dishwasher, not a big deal, but it does give us the ability to have a dishwasher and a dish drawer, and then a dishwasher with no control panel, and a dishwasher with no control panel, and a dish drawer with no control panel. Now, really and truly, I'm not aware of a dish drawer that actually is available with a control panel at the top like this. So that may just need to go away ultimately, but right now all 4 of those are there, and it's a nice option and it does look better. Still waiting on the same application with the panelized version, but for now we have the one without panels like that. So that's all the new options of KCD version 9 that have been added that I'm aware of, and I'm using it on a daily basis and really enjoying those benefits. The next video that I'll do will be going over some of the new features and changes, and it's probably going to be a series of quite a few videos or video tutorials on what's been changed from version 8 to version 9 of the KCD or 232 library for KCD, and probably have to zero in on some topics because there's a lot of changes that have been made in startup standards, and even some things you can see from here where some of these items like this arched door and the entry door were in the accessories library, but they've been moved here to make it a little easier to access them. In the sink groups, I've moved the farm sink from it's still in the accessories group, but also moved it here just so you can get it without having to move to that other library. And so quite a few things like that. We've added an ADA sink cabinet, and I'll show you how all that works, and just quite a few things like that. So that's future videos coming up. So I hope this was helpful and useful, and I look forward to showing you some of the other features of the 232 library for KCD in the future. Thanks for watching.